In May this year, the Alabama Senate passed a bill which bans abortions unless there is serious health risk to the mother, with no exceptions for rape or incest. Doctors who perform this procedure, that 1 in 4 American women will have at some point in her life, face prison sentences of up to 90 years. Many other American states have some variation of a heartbeat ban in place, which are abortion bans prohibiting the procedure after 6 weeks, when a heartbeat can be detected. In Australia, access to abortion varies state to state, from legal upon request to legal only for certain circumstances. These are just some examples of the state of reproductive rights for women at the moment in 2019. Reproductive rights are the legal rights and freedoms relating to reproduction and reproductive health, and can include the right to legal and safe abortion, the right to birth control, freedom from coerced sterilization and contraception, the right to access reproductive health care, and the right to education and access in order to make free and informed reproductive choices. Issues related to reproductive rights are some of the most contested rights worldwide, and speculative genres such as sci-fi often explore the social, political, technological, and biological consequences of pregnancy and reproduction. From looking at other ways for sexual reproduction to work, to interspecies reproduction, to infertility, sci-fi asks questions like, what happens if we make humans like this? Or what happens if we stop making humans at all? Fertility and reproduction are key issues for sci-fi to explore, as you can use these lenses to look at concerns we have about the future of humanity. For example, Children of Men centers around the potential implications of a mass global infertility crisis, and The Handmaid's Tale looks at gender in terms of state-controlled reproduction, abortion, and birth control. Some sci-fi films deal with reproduction from the position that the ability to create life is equivalent to humanity. For example, in Blade Runner 2049, the implication is that if it's discovered that replicants can fall pregnant and give birth, there will be questions regarding how they've been treated and potential fallout as a result. So in theory, it's okay to enslave and kill beings which cannot procreate, but unethical to do so to beings which can fall pregnant. You can draw parallels here with the fact that often people who make laws about the reproductive rights of women value the life of the unborn baby over the life of the already born woman carrying it. In both cases, the person in question becomes incredibly more valuable once they can or have created life. This value on fertility is a key theme in many sci-fi future stories. There is also the issue that in many sci-fi stories, it's a futuristic world with advancements in technology, but reproductive health is still quite primitive in comparison. Why can a story simultaneously have someone fly their spaceship to make the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, but still have a woman die in childbirth? As Sarah Jeong points out in her comprehensive feature for Motherboard, the Star Wars world doesn't have very good pre- or postnatal care. Padme was completely unaware she was having twins until she gave birth, so she clearly didn't have an ultrasound. And this just doesn't make sense considering the tech and medical advancements that we see utilized in the Star Wars universe. Of course, writers were never going to write a scene featuring Padme and Anakin going to an obgen, but the implication behind these creative decisions remains. Whoever is creating these stories aren't considering reproductive rights in a comprehensive enough way. On the other side of this are stories which have taken the issue of reproductive rights and deliberately used this to make comments about how reproduction is framed in the future. In Mad Max Fury Road, women in the world have been enslaved for their reproductive purposes. There are women who are farmed for their milk, and there are the 5 prized breeders. In this world, the most sacred thing you can be is an attractive, fertile woman. In The Handmaid's Tale, fertile women are raped under state sanction and forced to breed children for infertile husbands and wives, and the entire world is incredibly repressive for women's sexual and reproductive rights and body autonomy. Women in this world have zero reproductive rights and body autonomy, and the book and show explores an imagining of fears about how the government could control how we reproduce. In terms of the actual future of reproductive rights, things, again, aren't looking great. There's no gain the women's movement has made that it can't, in theory, have taken away. If we just look at America, many states already have women dying from unsafe abortions, high levels of infant mortality rates in states where abortion is the most restrictive, and abortion laws are being rolled back in many states. When Brett Kavanaugh was elected to the Supreme Court, it was predicted that Roe v. Wade was on the chopping block and might be repealed in the future. However, many lawyers predict this isn't the case, and an outright rejection of Roe v. Wade is quite unlikely. However, they do predict that the laws will just slowly be worked back until there are more and more limits put on women's bodies. There are several other predictions about the future of reproduction health. The biological clock is becoming less and less relevant as we have advancements in reproductive technology. Genetic babies will become more and more the norm, and there will be even more ways to make a baby. So how accurate do sci-fi films get it? This one is really hard to say because of the sheer number of sci-fi films and fiction that tackle issues related to reproduction. However, I'd make the argument that more often than not, sci-fi films land in one of two places in regard to reproductive rights. They either use it as a critical plot device or theme and explore this issue to some degree, or they neglect reproductive rights and represent them incorrectly in an unhelpful way or as an afterthought. Either way, there is food for thought in the fact that most of the time, sci-fi films that explore a way of reproduction that is outside of two humans biologically doing it generally do so in a negative way or as a warning. When we have had really great examples of speculative fiction which have explored issues such as reproduction, it's generally been created by a woman, just like The Handmaid's Tale. This is because having women write stories about women generally means you get better stories about women being told. When the issue is so nuanced, important, and critical for the progression for women as reproductive health is, we need to have good, well-written stories about the fears and concerns that surround it, especially when the reproductive realities imagined by a lot of sci-fi creators and those predicting our actual future are closer than we'd probably like. See you next time!